So tonight I'm going to do an introduction to my next project. I spent the day welding up the sills on my Mondale estate, but I felt if I do too many videos on the Mondale, the channel's going to get a little bit on the boring side. I generally flip between projects and I normally have a couple on the go at once. So tonight I'm going to introduce you to my Austin 1100 two-door. The Austin 1100 two-door is an interesting car for me because it's the base model, it's the lowest of the lowest, it's poverty spec. It's the lowest specification car that they did in the 8016 range. Had a centre speedo, rubber mat carpet, pretty much it really. I bought this one many years ago from Preston. It was sold as rust free. When it turned up, it definitely wasn't rust free. We decided at that point to restore it. We probably should have scrapped it. We spent months and months and months doing the welding on the car. I then painted it matte black with household gloss. Ran it around for a little bit before I sold it to a gentleman in London. The man in London didn't like the matte black, cleaned it all off, painted it Harvest Gold, which is the original colour. Have to say, I hate Harvest Gold. There you go. It's a strong statement, but it's out there. Can't stand it as a colour. We happen to have 4 litres of what is Yamaha purple. It's cellulose paint, so it's fairly easy to apply. My dad actually painted this in a field, so it's not a bad finish for a field paint job. We then sold it on to a gentleman who ran it around for a number of years before it became too rotten to do anything else with. It then sold on several times, and a lot of that history is documented on AutoShite forum. I bought it off a gentleman on there called Simon, and he did a lot of the welding to get it to where it is now. But I will say, it was Simon's first project. He used it as a test bed to learn how to weld. Some of the welding is excellent, some of the welding is not so good. But I'm not entirely sure that Simon did all of the welding that's on this car, and I think a lot of the welding may have been done prior to him getting the car. So I'm not mocking Simon's welding at all. I know how hard it is to weld, and also I know how hard it is to weld when you don't have the original panels and you have to make do with what you've got. So we'll do a bit of a walk around the outside. As you see, it's a two-door. It's got no opening rear windows because it's a poverty spec. Inside is fairly basic, although it's also full of crap, and fairly stripped out. One thing I always liked about this car is it's got decent headlining, because I absolutely hate doing headlining. The car's full of lots and lots of random things, and one day I will empty it to have a look at what's inside. And I'll probably end up doing that in the next video if I'm honest, ready to start doing some of the welding. So if we walk around the front end of the car, mind the wing because it's not quite attached properly. There we go. Look at that. It's a thing of beauty. Simon fitted clear lenses, which I particularly like. And somebody fitted a grille without the Austin badge in the middle, which again, I really like. This side looks fairly good. Simon did the sills on this car, but obviously it needs the wheel arches doing now. Inside, as mentioned, is full of pretty much everything out of the car. Yeah, there you go. Should we get it in the air now and we'll have a look at underneath. This car is affectionately known as the Shed. This is the first time I've ever had this car on the ramp. It's also the first time I've looked at it since buying it back. So I'm just going to have a quick walk around the car and talk about some of the bits and pieces that need work. So clearly it needs a wheel arch. It also needs some work around the back end to tidy this corner up. I've just noticed that the subframe's actually touching the body. That's something that shouldn't be the case. So I can only assume that either this bottom bar's bent or it's pushed up somewhere, and it looks like this bracket's actually flat. So my guess is it's either been made at the wrong angle or it's been squished by somebody jacking the back end up. The back subframe itself, looking at it, doesn't look too bad. There's a little bit of welding up there that needs to be redone, or generally just sorted out. The back subframe itself should go again. Boot floor doesn't look too bad. Let's come on to the sills. So Simon was doing the outside sill. It's on a previous YouTube video. I'll put a link in the description to his videos. He's done quite a lot of work on these sills over the years, and to be honest, he's done a pretty good job of it, I'd say. It needs a little bit of finishing off, but for a first time welding effort, I think it's definitely passable. There's a couple of bits that I'll go around again just to tidy up some of the welding, but the welding is decent, it's fairly strong. The car will never be a show car when it's finished, so I'm not too particularly bothered. There's one major issue up the front. That is that it's missing the engine. The engine was in the car when I bought it, to be fair. I took it out because Simon had it apart and taken all the bearings and shells out because it needs a rebuild. If we come on to the front end, front balance is not too bad. It needs a plate in the corner. Other side's not too particularly bad either. Needs another plate. From what I can see, the inner wings look decent and they're always fairly strong. There's a bit of a hole. There's a bit of a hole there, but nothing too bad. The other side, I believe, has been replaced. It had a new trumpet. The replacement of the trumpet can be seen on AutoShite. I think it was done by a gentleman called by the name of Vulgar, but I'm not too sure on that. Same again. Simon did the sill this side. This must have been his second one because the welding's a lot better. There's a couple of plates. It's a bit of a patchwork quilt, but it's perfectly strong, perfectly presentable. And as I say, it's never going to be a show car. Needs the closing panels fitting, which will be one of the first things that I do once I've tidied up some of the welds a little bit. It's interesting that the hole in the floor is currently holding the bottom of the wing on, which I can only assume means the bottom of the wing is rotten. And there you go. Yep, it's rotten. Which is fairly standard on these cars. Again, the wheel arch is particularly poorly. It's missing in most places. And there's a massive hole at this back end. So, all in all, it's a pretty good project, I'd say. Needs this back corner sorting. Needs the wheel arches, sills, front wings welded on properly. But it's not too bad. The wings that are fitted onto the back end are special to the two-door, and the panels are fairly hard to get hold of. I'm quite fortunate in the sense that I have a panel that came off a Mark III MG 1100 two-door that has a decent wheel arch that we will remove and weld onto the car. If I show you over here, where the other wing is, it's got that back corner that we're missing. So that's really going to help us out. Little bit of rot in that corner, but I think it's a better proposition to weld these wheel arches on rather than the ones that are fitted to the car at the moment. So, what are we going to do with this car? So we've been backwards and forwards with the engines over the years, and it has previously had a 1300 GT lump in it when I was driving the car. We took that out when we sold it and refitted the 1100 engine back in. The original 1100 engine is there. As I mentioned, Simon took it apart. It's going to need a rebuild if I'm going to use that engine. But I probably won't. What I do intend to use is the engine that's next to it. As you can see, it's an MPI engine out of a Mini. There's a couple of problems with fitting MPI engines into 1100s. First issue, drive shafts. So the drive shafts on the 1100 have the crucifix style cross drive shaft couplings, the rubber couplings, whereas the Mini does not. It has the pop type drive shafts. I'm very fortunate that Simon at Mini Spares, there's lots of Simons in this world clearly, makes 1100 drive shafts that fit the Mini ends, so you can put the top pot type Mini gearboxes into 1100 now. They're fairly inexpensive for what they are, which is a pair of brand new drive shafts. Everything else MPI is on this shelf, so pretty much everything that is on that shelf will be going back onto this car. I obviously need to put the injection pump into the petrol tank, and I also need to fit the injection to the car. I think there's plenty of room, so hopefully it should fit. If it doesn't, then we're going to have to come up with plan C, or maybe plan D. But there you go. That is a walk around my Mark III Austin 1100 two-door. And I'm sure you'll support me in saying it's a thing of beauty, even if I say so myself.